History will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man.
You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, your host for great adventures in real estate. Stand by for a celebration of America. America is fantastic for a lot of reasons. I think real estate and the opportunity to own real estate and the right to maintain and keep your own property, the right to privacy, obviously free speech, which we're enjoying here together, you and I don't know. I think what we'll do is we'll focus on your right to keep and own property. We'll focus on the Fifth Amendment today. We'll focus on the news of the day as well from around the country. Hilda Stepkins is going to stop into the studio and bring you today's mortgage moment. She's with Residential Mortgage. We'll find out what today's mortgage rates are. We're going to explore a question I got from Don. Don wanted to know something very specifically about appraisals. Also, we're going to talk about property that is underwater. Title Talk today brought to you by Kachemak Bay Title and Stewart Title of the Peninsula. Warren Buffett, not doing too well, Warren. Well, I think he can sustain this, but could you? Minimum wage back in the news. Also, I want to talk to you a little bit about personal property. This is something that we in the real estate industry face often. How to negotiate for personal property. Whose is it? What is and what isn't personal property? And also closing costs. That's a question that comes up a lot. Closing costs. Who's required to pay what? What are closing costs? And one of the things that Hilda and I will tackle is what is a closing cost versus a prepaid? And what is the difference? Plus, we've got an opportunity for you to go to dinner at AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern for free with our real trivia contest. And held over from Alaska Matters Radio on Tuesday, we've got your TVC Radio Word of the Week. I'm very excited about that. By the way, a program note, on Tuesday, I'll be inviting Heath Smith here to the studios of Story Productions, and we'll be inviting Mr. Smith to just discuss his platform. Those of you in Homer know, we have a runoff between one councilman, the incumbent, Councilman Burgess, and the opponent, the upstart, the highest vote getter, Mr. Smith, but it nevertheless not enough to get him onto the council. He needs to do a runoff on November 3rd. Anyway, we're going to find out what his platform is and just exactly what is going on. I overheard a conversation, by the way, that is Tuesday, this station, 12:30. And if you're not listening to both programs, I don't understand why. Why would you not listen to Alaska Matters on Tuesday at 12:30 when you listen to Radio Realty on Thursday at 12:30? Just do yourself a favor and do that. Both programs, by the way, brought to you in part by and made mellifluous by Horizon Satellite and Horizon Wireless at 226-3130. I was sitting with some clients the other day, and they asked for they said something about wireless internet, and I said, well, Horizon Satellite, and they're writing it down, and then I said, the number is 226-3130, and like, wow, all right, you really know their number. And I said, yes, I do. 226-3130, great company. In fact, they also do Dish Network and Direct TV. Did a superb install at my parents' new home the other day. Very happy to say that, and they were just thrilled with it. My dad was showing me last night. We were taking a tour of the new house, and he was showing me some, just some of the features of the new Direct TV boxes and stuff. Very cool. Horizon Satellite, Horizon Wireless, 226-3130. Again, I'm Christopher Story, along with David Becker, your engineer and producer, back up at the mothership of KPEN FM 102. We've got an exciting hour ahead right here on Radio Realty.
This is a great nation. It is a unique nation in all of human history and on the face of the planet, because here our founders believed that everyone has a right to fulfill their potential, and that right, they called it life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, comes from God and cannot be taken away by government. We have arrived at a point in our nation's history where the potential of this nation and too many Americans is being crushed by the weight, the power, the cost, the complexity, the ineptitude, the corruption of the federal government. And only someone who will challenge the status quo of Washington, D.C. can lead the resurgence of this great nation. I will do that.
Oh, beautiful, for heroes proved in liberating strife. Who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, make God thy gold refine.
God bless America. Thank you for listening today to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in Real Estate. Broadcasting live today from the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway, the home of the Story Team and the Nerve Center of all things possible and prosperous. Mr. David Becker is back up at the mothership of KPEN FM 102, making it all happen right up there. Hey, you want to go to dinner? You don't have to go with me. That's the mistake, too, that a lot of people make, is they think if they win the AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern Real Estate Trivia Contest, if they win that, they've got to take me with them. And that's simply not the case. The better contestants do. You don't have to. Nobody says you have to. That's coming up, and it's regarding Alaskan stats found on the U.S. Census website. So if you're listening at work and you want to pull that up, just go to uscensus.gov. And just type in Alaska, and you'll know the answer in advance. At least you'll have it at your fingertips. First, though, I'd like to address an email. By the way, if you'd like to send an email, do so from ontopoftheworldradio.com. Just click on Contact Chris, ontopoftheworldradio.com. There's nobody between you and me. Just come straight to me. And or during the program, simply send a textual message at 299-7653. Any question, I don't care what it's about, what it's regarding. Real estate, mortgage, political or otherwise, personal, 299-7653. Use your name if you feel like it. If you don't. It's okay. It's no problem. We won't out you here if you don't want to be. Chris, says Don. Chris, why would someone sell a home for less than appraised value? Does that ever happen? Interesting question, Don. In fact, it does happen. Now, let's talk first about the converse. And that's what if you get a purchase and sale agreement together with a buyer, or you are the buyer, and you get a purchase and sale agreement together with your seller, and the home appraises for less than you've agreed to pay for it. What happens then? Well, that opens a whole host of opportunities, options, and woes for some, and all right for others. It just depends. Now, how that can happen is sometimes if there's just a misinterpretation, or there's just the comparables just aren't there. The appraiser can't put their fingers on or their hands on a good comp that would justify the price you've agreed to pay. Maybe you've agreed to include a certain amount of the price is inclusive of closing costs, and you've rolled them in. Very rarely do we see it happen that way. Now, one time it was an unrepresented seller, and they had, again, unrepresented seller. So we call that FSBO in the vernacular of realtors. It's FSBO, unrepresented seller, like a lawyer who has a client of his own that he represents himself. You know what they say. Anyway, so this particular seller put a price out there. I was representing the buyer. We'd agreed upon a price. It included a certain number of things, and the appraisal came in significantly. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much, but I had never, in 15 years of doing this, never seen it anywhere close to this kind of a disparity between agreed upon purchase price and the appraisal. I mean, it was shocking. Shocking. I mean, it was jaw-dropping shocking. I'll leave it at that. The seller had already moved out of state and said, you know what, fine. Okay, I'll sell it for that. He had enough equity in freeboard in the property. He was able to do it. And the buyer was smiling so wide they could eat a banana sideways, as Zig Ziglar would say. They loved it. It was fantastic. Back to your question, Don, though. Why would someone sell a home for less than appraised value? Very specifically, it does happen, and the why can be answered in one word: motivation. They want to sell fast. They want to sell for their own reasons very, very fast. And so now here's the, Don, I don't know specifically what you meant. Let me ask you this, though. Did you mean, what if you agree to pay $200,000 for the property and it sells for $210,000? The seller really doesn't have a choice there. The seller's got an executed contract. They have a purchase and sale agreement, and they've agreed to sell a property at that price. So if it appraises higher than what's been agreed upon, well, that's sort of that's bully for you, the buyer. That's nothing the seller can do about it. That's just equity the buyer's walking into. If, however, do you mean, Don, and this is how I took it to mean, why would somebody get their home appraised and then sell it for less than what it's worth in that moment? Well, again, back to motivation. Maybe they've got a deal somewhere in another state that if they can get the cash now and they've got the equity position to do it, and they want to offer a discount off the appraised value, they can move their money, their capital, into another investment and garner a higher return, a better deal for them. That's one. The other that I thought of was like, well, okay, I've seen this before. A debt is due. A balloon payment's coming up on this very property, maybe, for example, or another property, and this particular seller needs to garner some cash in hand now to pay that debt off in a hurry, and it's not going to do them any good to hang on to this property with the equity frozen in time. So they'll reduce that position in order to, again, it comes back to motivation and speed, timing, time on the market. And the other thing I think I've already talked about, that would just be if there's a marketplace heating up, which, by the way, we're going to talk about what states are still experiencing underwater markets. Alaska is not one of them, but that could be it just as well. They're going to move this money into, say, Texas, or they're going to move it over to, what's this one, Lakeland, Florida, where 28% of the sales are underwater. They want to move some money down there, take advantage of that market. Very specifically, I have a home I just listed that is, it's a great house. So don't think for a second that this only happens with beleaguered properties or properties that are, in some serious trouble, or bring your hammer type properties. This is a beautiful ranch home on East End Road with a gorgeous view, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage. Again, 1 level, hardwood floors. We've got a beautiful kitchen. I mean, it's one of the most gorgeous kitchens you've ever seen. List price, $339,900. Appraised value, $365,000. Just went on the market. It's just going on the market, literally about to hit list on this thing. It's gorgeous. And so there's about $25,000 right there of equity you could walk into as a buyer, and it's for the seller's own motivation to price it as such. So, I mean, now if you tried to build that, by the way, you tried to build that very house, you're going to be probably $65,000 higher, maybe even a little bit more than that, higher than the ask price of $339,900. Anyway, you want to talk to me about this or anything else, email me from our website, on topoftheworldradio.com. When we return, we'll be joined by Hilda Stepkins, and we've also got our Real Trivia Contest brought to you by AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern here on Radio Realty. You're listening to Radio Realty. You've tuned in just in time for our Mortgage Moment. Today brought to you by Hilda Stepkins with Residential Mortgage, where great people make a great company. 888-480-8877. 888-480-8877. Hilda, before you got here, I had intended to talk about closing costs and kind of not just what they are, but who pays them typically in the area. I haven't got to that yet, but let's start, Hilda, before we even get into closing costs versus prepaids. Let's start with today's mortgage rates. Where are they at?
Hi, Chris. Hi, listeners. Rates are still, I always say rates are good, but conventional rates right now for a 80% loan to value, 30-year fixed, good credit, you're looking at 3.875 with an APR of about 4%. and that is pretty darn good rate, I think. I don't
often brag about myself, Hilda. I usually wait for somebody else to do it, but I'm going to brag on myself right now because I have an example coming up in the later portion of the program, just talking about millennials, because they're in trouble, whether they know it or not, with rents rising as rapidly as they are. But anyway, so I'm breaking down how one can go about building their own plan of buying a home, turning it into a rental later, and so forth. And today's interest rate, I guessed off the top of my incredibly furtive and brilliant mind, 3.875. So I'm pretty proud of myself, Hilda. Can you tell that?
Good. You should be proud of yourself.
Uh-oh. I know whenever you compliment me, I'm setting up for a fall here. What about Alaska Housing?
Alaska Housing is pretty good too. They are. We are looking at it. The basic loan program for Alaska Housing is also 3.875. Same situation, 80% loan to value,
All right.
30-year fixed, and APR of 4%.
Okay, good. They've closed the gap on that. That's excellent.
Today, it's not every day is different.
That's true. That's a good point. So closing costs. Let's talk about that real quick because I think, they get a little bit of a bad rap, and I myself am a little guilty of just ubiquitously saying, oh, your closing costs are going to be roughly 3% of the purchase price for a borrower, say, for example. The truth of the matter is, though, Hilda, they're not all costs. Ultimately they are, but they're not all costs in the moment. Some things that are collected at closing that we just refer to as a closing cost are actually being paid in advance. So it's not fair to just call it a closing cost just to get this loan because you're actually prepaying some stuff, and that's what we call a prepaid. Am I giving a good example there?
Well, lenders usually talk about closing cost and prepaid, but then the general public only thinks about one bucket of money
Right.
and lumps it all together in this is the amount of money I have to bring to close.
Exactly.
This is a down payment, and the rest is just cost.
Right.
And yes, they are all costs, but not all costs have to be. They have to be collected at closing, but not necessarily paid at closing. So the closing costs are those items that have to be paid in full at closing, like the appraisal, the recording cost, the title company fee, the origination fee, all these, the as-built survey, all of those things that need to be purchased to get the loan to close. Those are the closing costs, and there are some costs typically paid by the buyer, some are typically paid by the seller. Those are not set in stone. Those are typically more industry practices which differ from geographical area to geographical area a little bit. And also some of the costs differ a little bit from area to area. And then the prepaid is money that gets collected and put in the borrower's reserve account to be paid later for items that the borrower would have to pay anyway, which would be property taxes if we're in a taxing area, and homeowners insurance, which would be required to have homeowners insurance if you have a mortgage loan. Some people that own their home free and clear up to not have homeowners insurance, which is pretty risky. But if you have a mortgage loan, you are required to have homeowners insurance, and that is paid annually. So we have to make sure when the next bill comes due a year down the road, there's enough money to pay it. And those amounts get replenished with a monthly payment, but at the time the invoice comes due, there may not have been enough collected yet. So that gap gets collected at closing as well. For instance, your homeowner's insurance, if we close today, we pay the insurance in full for the first year, but you may not have, and the next invoice will be sent to the loan servicer come September of next year. By that time, the borrower may have only made 9 payments. So there's 3 months payments short to pay a full year's homeowner's insurance. So those 3 payments would be collected at closing. Similar with property taxes. Property taxes are paid typically twice a year. We need to make sure that with the monthly payments that have been made, there's enough money to pay the taxes, the property taxes, when they come due.
Now,
those are called the prepaid.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you for clearing that up. And so in the future, I think I'll adopt the same practice that you have in the mortgage business and say closing costs and prepaids. Now, when asked to, a seller can pay up to, I believe it's anywhere from 3 to 6% of the purchase price towards buyer's closing costs. And you tell me where that's different. But my question is this. When I write it out, for example, in a contract with a buyer, I'll say closing costs, prepaids, and points as allowed by lender, because the reason I throw points in there is if we say up to 3% and the closing costs are going to be, say, $300 or $400 shy of that, or maybe $1,000 shy of that, as it turns out, they can buy the rate down a little bit. But is there anything, for example, that cannot be paid by a seller? Is there a loan program or anything where a seller cannot cover a certain cost?
Well, there are the 3% or 4% or 6% limitations, and that goes by loan program. Like FHA has the highest. They allow up to 6% of borrowers' closing costs and prepaid. So the seller typically paid costs are already excluded. So that is separate. So just the borrower's portion that are typically collected, the seller can pay up to 6%. And we have to have it specifically spelled out what is to be in that 6%, just closing costs or closing costs and prepaid or discount points, because the seller only wants to pay certain items. So we need to have that clarified, and we can't be left to interpret what somebody is thinking. So it has to be spelled out. Now, if you go conventional financing, depending on your loan to value, it varies a little bit. It actually has the lowest percentage. If you have a loan of 90% or higher loan to value, so the down payment is 10% or less, then the seller can only contribute 3%. And what that 3% is doesn't matter. It's just 3% of the whole package can be covered. And if the whole package, because their discount point exceeds 3%, then we limit out at that 3%.
Well, you heard it all here, folks, from Hilda Stapkins with Residential Mortgage, HomeLoansYouCanUse.com, 888-480-8877. Now, if you've got a 5% interest rate, something like that, it's a really good time to start thinking about refinancing down at 3.875. Thank you, Hilda.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners.
All right. You have a great day. And don't you go anywhere. We've got your AJ's Old Town Real Trivia question coming up here on Radio Realty. All right. Love having Hilda Stapkins on the program. 888-480-8877. I'm telling you, though, gosh, you're at 5.5%, 4.5%. I don't know. Whatever the metric is, it's worth a phone call. 888-480-8877 and find out whether or not it makes sense for you to refinance. Might want to tap into some of that equity, maybe pick up an investment property, something like that, or just refinance and get a lower mortgage payment every month. Want to reset the clock, obviously, to 30 years, so maybe you look at a 15 or 20-year or 25-year mortgage, something like that, so you can still maintain the equity pay-down program you've been on for a while. Anyway, good stuff. Thank you. AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern, great food. I'm going to hold this over, so stick with me through the top of the hour news. I'm going to ask the question. If you want to be prepared for the AJ's question, go to the uscensus.gov and type in Alaska, and you'll be set and ready to find the very specific answer we're looking for. But I've got this really cool, I found this sizzling sound, and so I got to ask the question with the sizzling steak in the background. Can't do it now. You understand, right? You understand. Title Talk coming up. We're going to dive deeper into closing costs. We're going to talk about Warren Buffett and all his problems. And millennials, that's right, 18 to 34, I think. Big trouble, big trouble. More here on Radio Realty.
You live here? Yes. Well, maybe you know what a zombie is. When a person dies and is buried, it seems a certain voodoo priests who have the power to bring him back to life.
Horrible.
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring. You mean like Democrats?
You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in Real Estate, broadcasting live today from Story Real Estate at the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway, the home of the Story team and the nerve center of all things possible and prosperous, where it's never no, it's maybe not yet, but never no. That's the team we align ourselves with, be it insurance, mortgage brokers, partners in this business. It's always, not yet, but here's how you can do it. It's about formulating a plan. David Becker's your engineer and producer back up at the mothership of KPEN FM 102, brought to you in part today, thanks to Horizon Satellite, Horizon Wireless, incredibly fast wireless network. Find out if you're in their footprint by calling 226-3130, 226-3130. AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern makes this portion of the program possible. Now, I have to do this. Doesn't that sound? That's a steak being cooked at AJ's Old Town Steakhouse. Sent a microphone down there earlier today. Listen to that. Oh, man. Isn't that something? That's amazing. That could be your steak. You and I could go to dinner for free. Well, okay. You get to go to dinner for free. At AJ's, if you answer this question correctly, and good friend and listener, good friend of the program in Soldotna, Phil came down over the weekend. You could do it too. If you're outside the footprint, it doesn't matter. You'll be in Homer at some point. Play the game, 907-299-76 53 907-299-7653. You deserve a night out on the town. Make it Old Town at AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern. Oh, by the way, Hobo Jim is going to be back this next summer doing his concert series at AJ's. But all winter, there are great performers. Piano men like Johnny Bushell. He used to play, remember, with Tom Bodette on the road program. Great artists are going to be there all winter. The way to find out and keep up with what's going on, two things. One, listen to Radio Realty. And two, go to Facebook and find AJ's Old Town Steakhouse on there and follow them. They don't bombard you with stuff. It's just good information. All right, according to the U.S. Census, as of 2014, the latest data, as of 2014, how many housing units are in Alaska? You got two choices. How many housing units are in Alaska? That can include single family and multifamily. It's just a housing unit, a domicile. How many in Alaska? Either 300,000 plus or less than 200,000. Your guess is 300,000 plus, less than 200,000. 299-7653. You've got nothing to lose. Well, free dinner's on the line. You might lose that if you don't try. Two of you randomly chosen. Text me now, your name and answer, 299-7653. AJ's Old Town Steakhouse awaits you. How many housing units are in Alaska? 300,000 plus or less than 200,000. Warren Buffett had a really rough week last week. Started off with Walmart. They reported 1%, I think it was 1%? It was like a 1% drop in their projected earnings, something like that. Well, it equated to a $360 million hit to Berkshire Hathaway's holdings in Walmart. They own 60.4 million shares, out of their control completely, no control over it. Boom, $360 million gone in a day. Well, Wells Fargo also reported some earnings drop. Year-over-year earnings just didn't do so well. It wasn't even a drop as much as it was. Projected earnings didn't actually live up to the actual earnings. Well, there went another $170 million from Berkshire Hathaway's holdings. That's not all. IBM missed the mark. Their quarterly earnings were 14%, but not as high as it had been the year before. Same quarter, there goes $680 million. Three stocks in 1 week equated to $1.2 billion down the drain, according to Fortune magazine. Down the drain. You might ask yourself, how is it that one man, because you have to admit, the Oracle of Omaha really is in charge of Berkshire. Everything that is done there goes through his mind. And there really is a hit to him. I mean, my goodness, $1.2 billion. It's in a week. $1.2 billion. How do you sleep at night? Well, you sleep at night knowing you actually have a portfolio of $115 billion. That 1.2 drop equates less, well, right at 1%. Yeah, right around 1%, almost exactly. So that's how you sleep at night. But I bring it up not to revel or to practice. What's the German word for when you enjoy somebody else's suffering? Oh, I used it on Top of the World Radio not long ago. I wish Hilda was here. Dusseldorf? No, that's a place. I'll think of it. I will think of it. If you know it, text it now, 299-7653. You know the word. It's do not Freud. Yeah, it'll come to me in a second. Moving right along. Millennials, you're in big trouble. You may never, ever, ever get to retire. It's true. It's true. It's a new article that says you're in big trouble. If you're in your 20s and not already saving for retirement, you better start now. A Nerd Wallet study says things are not looking good for college graduates these days. In fact, retirement age for millennials, 75. 75. Rising rents, first thing out of the gate, rising rents and increasing student loan debt have pushed retirement age to 75 for college graduates. That's an increase from last year's analysis that had them at 73. So it's going to be out there. Pretty soon it's going to be retirement age is 80. But, of course, if we're living to 120 or 160 at some point, then that's not going to be a big deal. But they're talking about rents rising 12%. 12% since 2012. That's a massive burden on a staggering amount of people because not only are rents increasing, the number of people renting are going up. So it combined, it spells trouble for those that are not investing in real estate. My solution, invest in real estate right now. They talk about in this article, they talk about in Wallet Hub and Nerd Hub and all these other people doing analysis all across the country are saying, well, you better start saving now. Well, saving's good. You want to have some liquid asset, of course. You want to have some savings in the bank, no doubt. But you don't have to have that to get started in real estate. That's the beauty of real estate and opium, OPM, other people's money. Use a zero down program. Here's how you can do it. This is an example. This is a real life example. In my market, in Homer, beautiful little home, 2-bedroom, great view, in one of the most desirable and sought after neighborhoods anywhere in our entire market on the Southern Peninsula. Seriously, $164,000. Okay, let's just assume you buy this with zero down. Let's say you put up your $1,000 earnest money. I'm talking to you, millennial. You put up your $1,000 earnest money. You ask the seller to pay all your closing costs, if they agree. You literally bring not a penny to closing. And in fact, if you orchestrate it such, you might even get your $1,000 back at the table. Well, what have you got to lose? Taking that analogy just a little further, that example a little further, your payment, $771 using today's mortgage rate. You just heard Hilda Stepkin say this, 3.875% interest rate, 30-year fixed. It's practically free money. Not quite, but it's practically free. 30-year money. Throw in taxes and insurance, so you've got your principal, interest, taxes, insurance. You're going to be right around $890 a month. That is cheaper than rent. You're not going to rent it for less than $950. So now for cheaper than rent, you own it. You spend 12 months because you must, with a rural development loan, you must spend 12 months in the house. You fix it up. You paint it. It's not in this example, this exact example, it doesn't even need it. But if you wanted to, you want to make it your own, you paint it. You put in some new flooring. You kind of beef it up to make it a little bit bulletproof. By that I mean where you might have linoleum, you put in a harder scape, whatever. You want to put something that's going to be durable, replaceable, clean, easy to maintain going forward. You do all of that. You move out a year later. You rent it out for $950 a month. That's right now. Forget the fact that rents are rising and on the rise. Forget that. Let's just go with today's rent, $950 plus the tenant pays tax, plus they pay utilities. You have $59 a month equity coming towards you. That's just under $1,000 a year. You're not going on easy street. This is an investment. From now on, you're going to enjoy average over the next 30 years, 3% appreciation a year. Not guaranteeing it. I'm saying average. Some years will be 6, 7, 8, 9, down to -2, back up to 3. It's going to average out at 3% over the next 30 years. Mark my words on that. Now, your tenant is paying the interest. Your tenant is paying the taxes. Your tenant is paying the insurance. Your tenant is paying the principal down. Okay, you're 28 right now. For example, you're going to be 58 when you own this free and clear. Let's just project out. I just played around with the numbers and said, okay, let's say it's worth 210 conservatively. Worth 210, probably more than that. Well, let's just take 210 minus your original basis of 164, out of which you put zero down, by the way, and your tenant paid off 29 years worth for you. You have $46,000 rate of return just right off the top of a zero down investment. Hello. In the year you did live there, you had to live somewhere. Are you following me? You had to live somewhere. So you got $46,000 above and beyond the original purchase price. Plus you own it free and clear, bringing in about $15,000 a year income. You do this 4 times. 4 times. You're not even 36 years old. You do this 4 times over the next, say, 4 to 5, 6 years. By the time you do retire, and you can and will retire with this plan, you'll have close to $60,000 a year free and clear income coming towards you. No mortgages, free and clear, $60,000 a year, passive income coming towards you, not to mention over $1 million in equity. Booyah. I think I just nailed that. Honestly, I'm going to go celebrate with that. I'm going to take a quick Blackwater Bend espresso timeout, have some coffee, and celebrate what I just did for you, the millennial class. We'll be right back with more here on Radio Realty. It's time for your TBC Radio Word of the Week. That's right, TBC Radio. Put your small business here on the radio with TBC Radio. Call Josiah today. See what he can do for you. Just check it out. TBC Radio. Radio is the original social media 486-0210, 486-0210 for TBC Radio, 486-0210. They bring you the word of the week. Today, the word of the week, replete. Replete. Full, abundant, abundantly fed, fat, stout, complete. Replete. Use it in a sentence today and impress your friends. In fact, use it for the rest of the week. Use it until we meet again on Tuesday. I'm serious. Use the word replete as often as possible. Let's try to get it started. Let's see if we can get replete back into a daily occurrence where you hear it constantly. Oh, I'm replete with a patriotism that just is bursting forth in song. Oh, say, stop it. Just stop. I'm replete with ignorance when I think I can sing. This program, Radio Realty, is replete with good advice and sage wisdom, brought to you by me. There it is, replete. I had a different word, but I'm saving it for next Tuesday. It's really, I guarantee you've never heard the word I'm going to bring you on Tuesday. Guarantee. I'm replete with confidence that you've not ever heard or used the word I'm going to bring you on Tuesday's program for TBC Radio Word of the Week. I'm replete with excitement. How to deal with personal property in a real estate transaction. By the way, you know you're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, along with David Becker. We're bringing you what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. How to deal with personal property. It comes up constantly. Ask any realtor you know. Ask anybody who engages in the practice of real estate that you know, and they will tell you personal property is a constant facet of dealing in real estate. And it's natural because what do you need? You need a refrigerator. You need a washer dryer. You need fuel in whatever tank is there, be it propane or oil. If that's not an issue, then maybe it's firewood. Or if that's not an issue, maybe it's that really cool snow blower. Or maybe it's that awesome set of snow machines in the back. Well, see, that's the coolest thing ever about real estate is you can do anything with it under the sun. You can negotiate on anything and everything. So one word to the wise, you don't want, I have to be careful the way I say this because I want to be super careful. So what I'm saying is lenders don't want to loan money, 30-year mortgage money on a refrigerator, and they're the first ones to tell you. So whatever you do when you're negotiating for personal property, put it to the back of the book. Put it on what's called a separate bill of sale. Your realtor will know this, call it an SBOS, bill of sale, whatever. You want to put any personal property over here, separate from your real estate contract. Now, while you and the seller might be negotiating, or you and your buyer might be negotiating directly about the firewood, the snow machines, the snow blower, the lawnmower, that really cool tractor, whatever it is, you can negotiate all day long, come to terms on it, whatever. Put all the personal property over on a separate bill of sale, including the refrigerator and the washer and dryer. Now, what stays? Let's separate out personal property from fixtures for a moment. A stove, heating elements, boilers, obviously, dishwasher, sinks, lights, toilets, anything built in is obviously considered a fixture. Now, why a removable item like a refrigerator would be considered it's connected to the water source in a lot of cases for the ice maker or the water. I don't know. I don't make up the rules, folks. It just is the way it is. Refrigerators are typically considered personal property along with the washer dryer. Now, me personally, I'm never going to sell a place where I go, I'm removing the refrigerator and the washer and dryer. But you might, and that's your prerogative. You can say that. Your buyer might also ask for it, just to be included for $1 on a separate bill of sale. And that's okay, but that's where it belongs, is on that separate bill of sale. We don't want to put it into the contract because all of a sudden the lender's going, you guys, hey, dummy, we don't loan 30-year money on refrigerators. Stupid. But you're kind of cute. Hey, what's your name? So fuel, propane, things like that, they, again, don't want to see it. Put it on the separate bill of sale. It is separate, but negotiable. Separate, but equal. Here, one thing, I made a note to myself, because I wanted to remember this. Whatever you do, now I'm talking to you as a seller. If you're a buyer, you'll want to remember this at some point. You'll be the seller. Don't pump the tank. Do not pump your fuel tank. Do not say, well, I'm only leaving 50 gallons in there, and go and get your buddy with a pump truck or the company to come and get X number of gallons out. Don't do it. Don't do it. But here's what you can do. You don't need to fill it. necessarily, unless it's agreed upon. But in other words, if you just agree to leave the fuel in the tank and it become personal property of the buyer at closing, fine, leave whatever's there, a reasonable amount, but you don't need to go and top it off or fill it up unless you agree to that or you just feel like doing it. When I first started, fuel was like 89, 99 cents a gallon. It was no big deal. Never a big deal. It never became an issue. It was just always, oh yeah, and tell them I just filled the tank too. They can have all that. Then it hit what? Almost $5 a gallon, and it became fighting words. I just filled the tank. I want $1,500 or more. Anyway, so you want to be just careful about that, and so just be careful. Personal property goes on a separate bill of sale. I overheard a conversation the other day. I'll tell you about it in a second. I want to remind you, we've got an AJ's Old Town Steakhouse real trivia question hanging out there. Ken in Kodiak, man, he nailed it. He actually went to uscensus.gov, and not only did he answer the question, he answered it with such specificity that he gets an honorary win, but he's all the way over in Kodiak, so we don't, sorry, Ken, we'll enjoy a steak for you, but we do owe you a meal at some point when they let you out of the rock and you're able to come over here to America, to Alaska. So here's the question, and you yourself might be one of our selected winners. How many housing units are in Alaska? 300,000 plus or 200,000? 200,000 or less or 300,000 plus? Your choice, 907-299-7653. Overheard a conversation. We'll call him Homer Man versus Soldotna Man. Well, it wasn't versus, but I heard Homer Man talking to a Soldotna Man the other day. The Homer Man said, hey, you happy about the repeal of the non-prepared foods tax? You enjoying that? A little less expensive food? And the Soldotna Man said, well, we're going to have to pay for it somehow, probably be on our property taxes. Homer Man said, wait a minute now. What about reducing costs? What about cutting costs? What about government reducing costs? I mean, why is it the first reaction to increase taxes? Somewhere else, you squeeze here, we'll move it there. Great question. Now, the Soldotna Man's not wrong. Not wrong to be worried about that. Not at all. But here's my admonition to all of us. Anybody on the peninsula that's now going to be affected maybe by the threat of, well, Homer, for example, well, since we can't increase the non-prepared food sales tax, we're going to have to increase property taxes. Or putting pressure on the assessing department, however that plays out. No, you need to be on high alert. The Homer Man's right. Watch out that your property taxes do not go up for any reason other than actual market fluctuation, which is what the assessor's job is. Watch your property taxes very, very closely. Say no to any talk of a mill hike. Absolutely no. And no hikes to your value without real justification. I don't mean, well, all of the homes in this area that are single story or story and a half are going up this year. No, that's bogus. Don't buy it for a second. Put that right back on to the assessor and say, no, sorry, homie don't play that way, and the market doesn't increase that way. Their job is to evaluate and hats off, do the best they can in a non-disclosure state. This isn't a criticism of anybody at the assessing department, but you can't take your eye off the ball for a second. Here's the other admonition, the other warning. Do not accept the warning that you're going to waste your $100 on an appeal. Do not do it. I had 2 people come to me last year that said, well, we were going to appeal, but the person we talked to said, don't bother, just save your $100. Guess what? Both of them did appeal. Both of them did win because their assessments had erroneously risen without justification. Keep your eye on the ball. I'm Christopher Story along with David Becker. We'll be right back here on Radio Realty. I truly love my job. I really, really love my job. You'll see in our print ads or on our whatever, you'll see, oh, we love what we do at Story Real Estate. We really do. I love my job. I've just been dealing with the negotiation on Willis Seller. While we were in that break, I was just dealing Willis Seller, accept owner financing on this particular property. He's talking about it. He's thinking about it. We're going back and forth. Another realtor out of Anchorage that I'm dealing with on another sale just texted me, and we're talking about personal property. What are the odds? It's just what we're talking about here. I'm dealing with it in real time with you on Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, loving to be your host of what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. Our website, on top of theworldradio.com. On top of theworldradio.com. AJ's Old Town Steakhouse brings you real trivia. Ken over in Kodiak nailed it spot on. I have to give him credit. 308,583 housing units, according to the U.S. Census. That's right. In Alaska, 308,583 83. So any of you that answered over 300, you were spot on. Ken was bullet point spot on. Ken is our honorary winner in Kodiak. Larry in Homer's our real winner. Well, I mean, you're a winner too, Ken. Oh, I have to be so careful. People are so sensitive. Not Ken. He's not sensitive at all. He's not saying he's insensitive. Okay, just stop already. Thank you so much, everybody who participated. Really appreciate it. Larry, you're going to love your dinner at AJ's Old Town Steakhouse. Come by here to Story Real Estate and pick up your gift certificate. And I want to thank Phil and Saldana, everybody else that participated. Love having you part of the program, even if you don't win. Realtor Magazine warns renters may need to brace themselves. That's right. Rents skyrocketed. This is a follow-up to our millennial warning. In 2014, many analysts did not think these escalating costs would be sustainable, but yet they've yet to slow. That's right. Rents continue to rise at a pace of 5.2% in just one segment, just one quarter. Can you believe it? 5.2%. I'm telling you, that was just in one quarter, and they haven't been this high since 2011. A year ago, rent was growing at 4.1. This year, 5.2. Two things. Millennials, anybody thinking about buying, anybody thinking about getting into a house, do it. Rents are going up, number one. Number two, if you're thinking about investing in a multifamily or a rental house, whatever, there it is. Handwriting's on the wall. It's going to be a good investment for the foreseeable future. You heard the single-family plan. I hope you take advantage of that. I really do. Closing costs. We'll get into closing costs here in more detail. We're about to head out for the day. So I'm going to bid you adieu and say goodbye. Remind you that you really can make $1 million in your own backyard. Stay tuned to this program. We'll see you on Tuesday for Alaska Matters Radio. For all of us here at Radio Realty, I'm Christopher Story, asking you to have an incredible day. Go make somebody else's day. We'll see you next week.